Good evening. I'm Sarah-Tai Black. Thank you to the Walrus for having me tonight. I do need to warn you guys that I wrote this talk while listening to Tracy Chapman on repeat, and it shows. It shows. When Blair Elliott, the event manager for the Walrus, telephoned me last week to ask what my talk would be on today, I was very, very tired. I hadn't really slept, I was in pain, I was overwhelmed by the amount of work that I have to do this month, and worst of all, I was hangry. So when Blair called me, as lovely and supportive as she is, let's give it up for Blair, actually, and Shelley, and all of the people. There are a lot of people working here tonight who made it possible for us to be here, and we don't see them, so we should clap for them. Anyways, when Blair called and asked for an update on what I was going to talk about tonight, I vacantly answered, diversity? And I pretty much left it at that. I clearly hadn't yet had the time, or frankly, the energy, to really shape any sort of firm idea of the ground that I wanted to cover. And God bless her, she worked with what little I gave her. In my mind, I thought my talk would be some sort of makeshift Coles Notes of my entire Twitter feed, something kind of easy like that, a voice that I was used to turning on in public, the type of voice that I and many others like me are known for. I am not an activist, and although I know and work alongside many who are rightly called such, I deeply respect the work that they do. I consider myself an advocate that has had to constantly remind herself that perhaps not rising to the level and the capacity of activists proper might actually be okay. For the past several years, I have had the privilege, and indeed it is a privilege, of speaking quite publicly about film and art and representation and all of the complex politics which come along with it. It's the sort of job that my second and third generation family are proud of, but that they don't fully understand, in as much as it isn't labor in the traditional sense. And frankly, at times, it does not pay in the traditional sense. But it is still work to me, and as much as I enjoy it for the most part, it is still work that takes its toll. As last week went on, I continued to push tonight's talk to the back of my brain. I was simply too busy, too tired, and if I'm being real with you guys, too depressed to pre-plan my big diversity talk. I intuitively already knew my main talking points: community, accessibility, advocacy, dismantling every single fucking system that has continually failed both myself and not myself thus far. Easy stuff, whatever, you know. These are the things that I have always returned to in both my work and my personal life. They are always there, and they are always being relearned and reformed. Even more than that, though, there is always the knowledge of someone else, someone always unlike myself and the communities that I am a part of, someone in a seat of power of whatever sort who wants me to share with them those feelings and experiences that I have recently begun to give language to quite freely and seemingly without filter and with so much care as to seem without it. This is often exhausting, but ultimately it is fine. The importance of making different kinds of space means I'm fine with it. My privilege as a light-skinned, university-educated Black woman means I'm fine with it. Precarious labor means I'm fine with it. When I widen my scope, I know that I have it better than many. And even more so, I know why I've been chosen by these types of people. I've never been very good at math, but the math here isn't very difficult to do. The more I talk about these things, I feel lulled into a false sense that things are changing. Things are different. There's no doubt about that, but enough to enact any kind of systemic shift, I'm really doubtful. It's kind of darkly funny that I spend so much time talking about what we need to do to make things better for underheard people working in the arts, when most times I wake up not fully believing in the ability of it to really happen at all. This is not for any lack of trying on our end. I don't believe that the people with the power to change things, or that enough people of this sort will give up their seat at the table. I just don't. Historically speaking, this has never been the case. We have always had to fight to take back what is ours, or at least try to. These are people who have succeeded because no one else can afford to. These are people who have come to make a so-called common space, which taxes people like us every time we enter it. There is the work that we do, and then there is the work that is placed upon us. That work doesn't care that we are tired, that our bodies hurt, that we have other people and children to take care of, that we can't afford health care or groceries or rent, never mind film festivals or industry talks. That work doesn't care that there are spaces that we literally cannot enter because people have not thought that we would be there in the first place. This work doesn't care about our plans for the future. This work doesn't care that we are waiting for something better. The onus has always been on us, and I'm pretty sure it will continue to be. And when I say us, and when I say our, and when I say we, I of course do not mean all of us. Looking at this room, I know that I do not mean all of us. If you are confused as to whether or not you are part of the us, chances are that you are not, and this is not for you. Or in some way, maybe it is. Maybe you should know about the kind of work that has been placed on our shoulders, or rather, maybe you should fully open your eyes to it. Ask yourself why your canon is different than ours. Ask yourself what experience it is that you bring to the table when you critique us, when you edit us, when you hire us to speak about things that you have no language to speak of yourself. Ask yourself why you see so much of yourself everywhere at all times, as if you are some sort of default setting in human form. Make yourself receptive to different forms of knowledge. Make yourself uncomfortable. Decenter yourselves. And yet again, I have sunk into this work, because we can never just be. I imagine that being without this work might be what it feels like to be free, or perhaps just what it feels like to be numb. For us, the real us that I'm talking about here tonight, I feel this. The more work that we do, and it is very important work that we do, and the more work that is placed upon us, I am less and less optimistic about the potential for change that so many of us, myself included, have spoken of. And I feel guilty about this, knowing how hard we work and at what cost. I wonder slyly if this is the new Afro-pessimism. Twitter tells me it isn't. I wonder if, like so much of the vocabulary that industries have appropriated from social justice movements, we should be thinking more in terms of harm reduction rather than eagerly anticipating some sort of logical tectonic shift, as if their systems of logic have ever thought about us to begin with. I wonder if we should more forcefully change our advocacy from how do we work to make better systems from ourselves to how do we work to make this kind of work less harmful for those most vulnerable to its effects? How can we work to sustain ourselves in doing this labor? This is by no means a new idea, but rather one that must be remembered and firmly held onto, especially in those moments when we are most willing to forgo it. Because, well, I can't speak for everyone else, but I know that I myself, I am tired from today, and I know that I am tired from the days that came before today, and I am simply too tired to think about tomorrow any longer. Thank you.